Stantler was supposed to be last Tuesday's Pokémon, but a combination of poor luck, bad judgment and one huge mistake meant I had to delay it a week. But now it is Stantler's time to shine. Will it be like all the other normal types in the Johto region and excel, or will this one be a little bit trickier? We'll find out together. As always, before we begin the challenge, we'll start with the 7 rules. Number 1, the timer will start when walking away from Professor Elm after receiving the starter Pokémon. Number 2, only the challenge Pokémon may be used in battle. Number 3, no items in battle except balls to catch HM friends. Number 4, no evasion increasing TMs such as Double Team. Number 5, no intentional uses of glitches or exploits. Number 6, no rare candies until facing red. And number 7, the timer may be paused for breaks in recording, but no inputs may be made when the timer is paused. And with all that, let's get into the challenge run. I used the Universal Pokémon Randomizer to replace Cyndaquil with Stantler. I find Feraligatr the hardest of the 3 starters to go up against, so I wanted to give myself the biggest challenge. I reset a little bit until I get a Stantler I'm happy with. I call it Stan, and the challenge can begin. As always, we'll start with the first battle that we encounter, and I got encounterless all the way to the second route. Our first Pokemon we encounter is a Spinarak, and of course we get poisoned on our first damage-taking move. That doesn't bode well, does it? But we reach Mr. Pokemon's house, we have a little chat with Professor Oak and get our Pokédex, and on the way out, of course, we get the call from Professor Elm telling us that a Pokemon has been stolen. I've already spoilt it for you, the Pokemon that was stolen was Totodile. This is the first of 5 rival battles we'll do throughout the game, and this one is relatively easy. Totodile misses its Leer, we get a critical hit, and we knock out the Totodile in 3 hits. We call the rival triple question mark when we speak to the police officer, and we can make our way on to Violet City. Violet City is the home of our first gym, and we are going against Falkner. Falkner's a flying type gym leader, he's got a Pidgey and a Pidgeotto, and his first Pokemon is Pidgey. I feel confident enough in this battle to not have healed beforehand. We use a Leer to lower the Pidgey's defense, and then we use the same strategy on the Pidgeotto. Gust isn't doing great damage on its own, but a critical hit means we have to use the berry to heal up, and then he gets another critical hit to take us down to 2 HP, but we do just about manage to survive this battle. Maybe I should have healed beforehand, that was very close because of the critical hit from the Pidgeotto, but we get our first badge, the Zephyr badge, and we can make our way into Azalea Town. First thing we do in Azalea Town is go into the forest next to it to catch our HM friends. As always, we're going for the Psyduck and the Paras. At this point, Paras is a permanent member of the team, replacing both Bellsprout and Oddish because of its ability to learn Dig. Not having to spend money on escape ropes means the early game is an awful lot less stressful. I don't run out of money trying to buy the Abra, and I definitely don't run out of money trying to buy enough repels in Olivine City. We catch both the Psyduck and the Paras, and we move on into Azalea Town proper. The first thing we've got to do is deal with those pesky Team Rocket. They're back and they're chopping off the tails of Slowpoke, and that's just no good. So I'll bring you to the battle with the final admin, who is unnamed in this generation and is just a grunt, and he's got a coughing. We taught Swift for this battle, we got that Swift TM in the Union Cave, and at level 15 we learn Hypnosis. Hypnosis is going to replace Tackle because Tackle is surplus to requirements having Swift, and Hypnosis is going to be a very handy move to make all the enemy Pokemon have a little nap whether they want it or not. And our second gym battle is coming now. This is Bugsy. He's a Bug-type leader with a Kakuna, a Metapod, and a Scyther. He leads with the Metapod, and we use Swift to take it down in just a couple of hits. Out comes the Kakuna. We use Swift on the Kakuna and it does more damage. Poison Sting doesn't poison us this time, and we are on to Scyther. We send the Scyther straight to sleep because it can be quite dangerous with its high attack. However, it wakes up on the first turn. So I send it to sleep again, and then I start using Swift after lowering its defense, and it wakes up again. This Scyther sleeps even less than me, but it doesn't matter anyway because we beat it and we get the Hive badge off Bugsy. 2 badges down and we can move on to rival number 2. Rival number 2 is a little bit trickier with Stantler than it was with Girafarig, because our only attacking move for the Ghastly is Mud Slap. Mud Slap did its job on the Ghastly though, knocking it out in 2 hits and making Hypnosis miss. So we're now onto the Zubat, which has confused us, but a couple of Swifts knocks it out, and that just leaves the Croconaw. First thing we do is lower its defense, and then I try sending it to sleep. so that we can lower its defense a little bit more and hopefully knock it out with 1 or 2 swifts. First swift gets it into the yellow, second swift knocks it out, and rival 2 wasn't too tricky this time. That makes a pleasant change from other runs, and that means we can move on to Goldenrod City. We get the cut HM, we get a headbutt. We move on into the underground where we grab the coin case. We give our Stantler a little bit of an antler cut from the haircut brother, and then we can go and grab our Abra. Abra costs 100 coins, which is 2,000 Pokédollars, which is a lot cheaper than trying to catch it with a lot of Pokeballs. We then go and grab the bicycle because I forgot to do it before going in the underground. That means we can quickly go and get Kenya from the guard at the gate, and once again we are stealing that Kenya, never to return it because Kenya is going to be used for fly. We speak to the flower shop lady, and finally we grab the Dig TM. Dig TM is in National Park and it's very important, and we can move on to Whitney. Whitney has a Clefairy and a Miltank. She leads with Clefairy, and Clefairy goes down in a couple of swifts. And we move on to the Miltank. First thing we do with the Miltank is the same thing we did with Scyther. We send it to sleep and we start to Leer. We want to give Miltank as fewer opportunities as possible to attack us, because if Rollout starts to build power, then it is curtains for Stantler, but we knock it out in 2 swift swifts and we get the Plane Badge. On our way to Ecruteak City, I decide to do a little bit of training. I go past Ecruteak City and go towards Olivine, and I encounter Schoolboy Chad. Schoolboy Chad has a Mr. Mime, and Mr. Mime is a really great Pokemon to get a bunch of experience, and we learn Stomp. Stomp is going to replace Swift because I like having the chance to flinch, and that comes in very handy for trainers like Chuck a little bit later on. We defeat the Komodo girls in the dance theatre, and then we can move on to rival number 3. Rival 3 leads with a Haunter, but we hypnotise it before it can swear at us, and then I start to Leer it. My plan here is to lower its defense enough to make sure that it doesn't curse me, and then we can move on. Magnemite is 4 times weak to ground, but I still decide to use a Hypnosis just in case, because I want to preserve my Mudslap PP in case things get a little bit desperate. Magnemite uses Sonic Boom, which is a Nuzlocke's nightmare move, but it doesn't matter for us because we have 81 HP, which is more than enough. Zubat is gone in the blink of an eye, and a couple of flinch stomps later, and the Croconaw goes down. So that is rival number 3, all done and dusted, and we can move on to Morty. But before we take on Morty, we have to take on the gym trainers themselves, and we only have Mudslap to deal with these ghost types, so this is not a fun gym for Stantler. Even though we are OHKOing the Ghastly, we are going to struggle against the more evolved Pokemon, but we get a level up off the Ghastly to get to level 26, and we can move on to Medium Martha. Unfortunately, we're going to have to see the Medium Sprite for another run. The Medium Sprite is one of my least favourite sprites in the game. It gives me the creeps. We're able to 2-shot her Haunter, which isn't bad going, and then that just leaves one final Ghastly to take care of. Ghastly, unfortunately, is a 2-shot as well, so we take quite a bit of damage from Curse. But we have defeated Martha, and I decide it's time to move on even further. We go towards the Lake of Rage and speak to the Fisherman here. The Fisherman has some Gyarados, which are really good, even at level 10 for getting experience. So we stomp the Magikarp and we stomp the Gyarados, and we get up to level 29. At level 29, I think we are good and golden to take on the gym, but while we're here, we might as well pick up the rare candy, and then we can move on to Morty. Morty's got a pair of Haunter, a Ghastly, and a Gengar. He's all the ghost types from Generation 1, and he leads with a Ghastly. Ghastly's usual opening move is to swear at us with Curse, so we knock it out before it gets a chance to do that. I try to send the Haunter to sleep, but this one does swear at us, so we are now on a clock. We're not a multiple of 4 HP though, which means we have an extra turn in the bank. We take 3 hits to knock out this Gengar, which is very frustrating, and then we are on to the final Haunter. It's looking like it's going to be a 2-shot on the Haunter, which is fine. It means we survive with 24 HP, and we have beaten Morty. Morty was a potential roadblock in this run. However, the combination of Leer, Hypnosis, and Mudslap did get us through relatively unscathed, and we can move on to Olivine City. We get Strength and Teach It along with Surf to our Psyduck, and then we ascend the Lighthouse to speak to Jasmine. We need to speak to Jasmine to be able to battle her later, and we need to speak to Jasmine to get the secret potion from Scionwood City. Talking of Scionwood City, that's exactly where we're going now. So a little trip over the water gets us to the Medicine Man's house. The Medicine Man gives us a secret potion so we can heal Ampharos when we get back onto the mainland. We then shove some boulders with our face, Chuck's a fighting type gym leader, so he's potentially our most dangerous one to date. He's got a Primeape and a Poliwrath. He leads with the Primeape and we manage to flinch it, so we're on full HP for the Poliwrath, and we use Hypnosis to send it to sleep. He uses a full heal, but that means we can Leer and stomp the Poliwrath. Poliwrath uses Mind Reader, but that's too late for him because we've already knocked it out. It felt good to beat Chuck on the first try because Chuck was part of the reason why the last run failed. In over 10 attempts against Chuck in my first run, Hypnosis never failed to miss, yet Dynamic Punch hit me every single time, so I was very relieved to get that done first time in this run. And we are now onto the red Gyarados, which goes down in 2 simple hits, and its bite does minimal damage to us. That means we can have a little chat with Lance. Lance is going to tell us about the Gyarados being forced to evolve, and he's going to trigger some Rocket storyline. What is important to us is getting the rare candy from Violet City, going into the Sprout Tower and getting our Flash HM, getting the return TM from the lady in the department store on Sundays, and then moving south of Goldenrod to get both the rare candy and the soft sand. You get the soft sand after beating the trio of cool trainers at the very south of Goldenrod. I remember the first time I ever went down that little bit of water south of Goldenrod. I was completely unprepared for 2 battles, one after each other, and I got annihilated. However, in this instance we are fine battling them. We grab the soft sand, we get Whirlpool from Lance, and we're ready to take on Price. Price is an Ice-type leader with a Seal, a Dugong, and a Piloswine, and he leads with Seal. Seal goes down in 1 hit and we're on to the bigger Seal, the Dugong. Dugong uses Aurora Beam for minimal damage, and we are already on to the Piloswine. We stomp the Piloswine, it flinches, we stomp it again, and we are ready to take on Jasmine after beating Price. Jasmine has 2 Magnemite and a Steelix, she leads with Magnemite, and this is the reason why I got the soft sand. That turns Mudslap into a 1-hit KO for the Magnemite, so no getting paralysed for us, and we can get to work on that Steelix. Steelix is a nightmare for normal type Pokemon because it's got huge defense, and normal types generally can't learn coverage unless they've got arms to punch it in the mouth. So we send it to sleep and we start leering at it. We make sure it's asleep as often as possible. Every time it wakes up we use Hypnosis until it goes back to sleep, and then continue leering it until it's at -6 defense. I want to try and knock it out in as fewer Mudslaps as possible, because if we have to resort to Stomp, that could be bad. Mudslap does great damage, it's not quite in healing range, and another Mudslap knocks it out. Jasmine was going to be scary, but having Leer saved the day. In my last run, I accidentally replaced Leer with Sand Attack, and that was what screwed me over. It's Rival 4 time. Rival 4 leads with the Golbats, which we stomp and flinch. I love having flinching moves, and it goes down in 2 hits. Out comes the Magnemite, and our soft sand boosted Mudslap is enough to knock it out. It's not enough to knock out the Haunter, however it uses Mean Luck instead of Curse, which means we are not on a clock for the rest of this battle. Sneasel comes and goes very, very quickly, and we are on to Feraligatr. We stomp the Feraligatr, it uses Water Gun for negligible damage, and we have defeated Rival 4. That means we are on to the Rocket segment, and in this Rocket segment absolutely nothing happened, so we just grab the pink bow, and we also pick up the radio card. And we grab the radio card to get through the western part of Kanto a little bit later. I teach Return over Headbutt, which I taught over Stomp in the middle of the Rocket segment for PP purposes. I think having the higher damage in these battles coming up is going to prove very handy. We've got 3 Dragonair and a Kingdra to come with Claire, and it was the right move swapping Headbutt for Return because Dragonair goes down in a single hit. That means we're not getting paralysed this time. I love not getting paralysed against Claire because it makes the rest of the battle very easy. Return does huge damage against the Kingdra and she uses Hyper Potion, but a critical hit knocks it out. We grow to level 46 and we get our 8th and final badge of the Johto region. The Rising badge is ours, and that means we can rise on up through the ranks of the Pokemon League. But before we do that, we grab the rare candy and we can move on into Victory Road. In Victory Road we have the TM to pick up, it's Earthquake, and this is another Pokemon that can learn Earthquake. Stantler's learn set isn't too dissimilar from Girafarig, however we're going to be staying as a physical attacker as opposed to being a mix of physical and special attack. So I really hope this run isn't too similar to Girafarig. I do try and use some alternative strategies to what I would have done with Girafarig, just to mix it up a little bit. And we have the final rival battle here. We use Return on the Sneasel to knock it out in 1 hit. Out comes the Golbat. Return takes care of that in just the same way. We have Magneton next, and we've got Earthquake to knock it out without any worry at all. Same goes for that pesky Haunter that likes swearing at us, and that leaves Kadabra and the starter. Kadabra goes down to a single return, out comes the Feraligatr. Feraligatr uses Slash, it does try and attack us this time, but it's not enough, and we knock out the final Pokemon. Thank you to the rival for being part of this video at the very least, and we can move on to the Pokemon League. As always, the first thing we do is heal up our Pokemon, and then we'll go to the box and deposit our HM friends. We say thank you to Kenya, to Abra, to Psyduck, and to Paris. They've been a great help through the Johto region, and I'm sure they'll continue to be a help in the Kanto region. We buy our 4 full restores as we always do, and then we'll go into the league and take a look at our stats. We've got 160 HP at level 50. We're holding a pink bow with Return, Leer, Hypnosis, and Earthquake as our learn set. 133 in attack, 99 in defense, 122 in special attack, 102 in special defense, and 122 in speed. Very good stats for Stantler, and our first opponent is Will. Will is a Psychic type trainer, and he leads with Xatu. Xatu comes out, but doesn't get a chance to attack as Return knocks it out in one hit. Jinx is next, and Jinx is very frail, so goes down in one return as well. Out comes the Executor. Executor is quite bulky, but not bulky enough to survive our Stantler. Even Slowbro goes into the yellow and goes down in 2 hits. And his final Pokemon is another Xatu that goes down to a single return. Let's move on to Koga. Now, I tried desperately not to over-level to this point. Level 50 was the bare minimum I could really get to the league with. And at this point, that makes the league very, very easy. Return is doing great damage on most Pokemon, and Earthquake is doing a lot of great damage on the rest. I tried desperately to send this fortress to sleep so we can start chipping away at it, because it has a nasty habit of doing just that and going boom. That's our first reset. Let's see if we can avoid any more in the league. Ariados goes down to a single return, as it always does. Out comes the Venomoth, and that goes down to another return. We're at level 51 for that pesky fortress that was very, very mean to us last time. I decided to spam Earthquake, it uses Protect, and I have a horrible feeling this is going to go the same way. But we send it to sleep, and it stays asleep long enough for us to Earthquake it again. We're past the fortress and onto Muck. Muck is very bulky, but not bulky enough to withstand an Earthquake. That just leaves Crobat. Crobat goes down to a single returner. We can move on to Bruno. Bruno's a fighting type expert, and he leads with Hitmontop. Hitmontop goes down in a single hit. We outspeed the Hitmonlee to take it down in a single hit as well. And now comes Hitmonchan. Hitmonchan outspeeds us with Mach Punch because it's priority, but that doesn't matter, we OHKO it and we are on to the Machamp. Machamp uses Cross Chop for huge damage and knocks us out. Let's try again. Hopefully this time we won't get Cross Chopped quite so hard. Hitmonlee comes out and we OHKO it, of course. We're going to take a little bit of damage from Hitmonchan because of its priority move. We don't have a priority move back. We move on to the Machamp, and I play it safe this time. I send it to sleep so that it cannot cross-chop us, and then it'll just be a few returns. He's in healing range, unfortunately, which prolongs the battle, but 3 returns later, and he goes down. We're on to Onix, and Onix is weak to Earthquake, so we use Earthquake a couple of times as he sandstorms. That won't even come close to knocking us out, and we can move on to Karen. Karen's a Dark-type expert. She leads with Umbreon, and we send it to sleep so it doesn't sand attack us. We use the return on it to take it down in one critical hit, and we're onto the Vileplume. Vileplume can be nasty because it's got Stun Spore, so we take care of it straight away. We're onto the Gengar. Gengar doesn't have Levitate in this generation, we can Earthquake it. Murkrow's next. Murkrow goes down to a single hit, and that just leaves Houndoom. That's Houndoom and not Houndour. In the last video, I said our Houndoom evolved into Houndour because I have mixed them up for 20 odd years. But it doesn't matter, we've knocked out the Hound and we can move on to Lance. We're on to Lance, the flying type trainer who pretends to be a dragon type trainer, and his first Pokemon is Gyarados. We use return to take it deep into the red, and he uses Rain Dance. A second return knocks it out and we grow to level 53 in the process. First Dragonite's out, it doesn't go to sleep on the first hit, but it doesn't Thunder Wave us and instead Hyper Beams us. I can then use return to take it down in 2 hits, no paralysis off the first Dragonite, and Dragonite number 2 comes out. We get paralysed this time, but I'm holding the berry because I remembered, but it doesn't work. We get paralysed and I am not having that in this battle. That will just drain our time, so I start again. And the battle goes exactly the same way. Red into the Gyarados, Rain Dance, and a second return knocks it out. Dragonite number 1 goes to sleep first time this time, and we can take it down in 2 hits. And we're back where we were with Dragonite number 2. We try Hypnosis, but it doesn't want to go to sleep, and Thunder Wave hits, but we've got the berry and we send it to sleep second time. Return takes it deep into the yellow, and another return gets rid of it. We can no longer be paralysed for the rest of this battle, and we're going to have to use our Leer for this Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl is nippy and can also hit very hard, so I am worried about it. So I get my Stantler to look at it funny a few times and then take it down in a single return. Charizard's next, and I thought I would OHKO it, but I didn't, so we get Flamethrowered, but fortunately we do not get burnt, and that just leaves the level 50 Dragonite. We miss Hypnosis a couple of times, and that lets Dragonite do huge damage with a Hyper Beam. However, we are able to send it to sleep. He uses a full restore, and that's what we needed to get 2 hits in a row and knock him out. We have beaten Lance with a time of 1 hour 25 minutes and 5 seconds, and we are in the league with a time of 1 hour 25 minutes and 26 seconds. Kanto's next. Before we go to the Kanto region, we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. The first thing we've got to do is chat with Professor Elm. He's got some stuff for us. He's got the SS ticket, which will let us go to Kanto, and he's also got a Master Ball, which will let us catch 1 Pokemon in the Kanto region. We then move on to Cherry Grove City, where we can say welcome back to Kenya, to Psyduck, to Abra, and to Paris. And now we can grab our couple of rare candies that we left in the Johto region. First one, of course, is in Mount Mortar. We grab this one up the waterfall, which is why we don't grab it earlier on, and then we go into the Whirl Islands to grab the second one. Whirl Islands is next to Olivine City, so it makes sense to do it while we're already here. And with that, we can go into Kanto, and the first thing we do in Kanto is the last thing we do in Johto. We grab a rare candy from the chairman of the fan club. We can then grab the Psychic TM, although in this instance I don't think we'll end up using it. And we can move on to Erica's gym. She's gym number 9, she's Grass type, and she leads with Tangela. Tangela is quite weak and goes down to a single return. Then she sends out Jumpluff. Jumpluff is also quite weak and goes down to a single return. I'm spotting a pattern already here. Victory Bell isn't victorious against us, and we are on to her final Pokemon, the Blossom. We knock it out and we can move on to Misty. And while we're taking on Misty, I have a question for you. Which do you prefer, Vileplume or Blossom? I always thought Vileplume was the more popular of the two. However, in a poll I did with a friend, Blossom won unanimously. Was that just a skewed result, or is that conducive of the general opinion these days? Feel free to let me know. Anyway, with that, we've taken on Misty and we are on to Sabrina. Sabrina's a Psychic type leader, very dangerous in Generation 1, but very, very timid in Generation 2. Espeon doesn't stand a chance, neither does Mr. Mime. The final Pokemon is Alakazam, not very good defensively, and goes down to a single return. Let's move on to Surge. Surge is the electric type leader of the region, and he leads with Raichu. We've got Earthquake for the electric type Pokemon, so this is probably going to be a foregone conclusion, especially as we outspeed the Electrode. Electrode is the semi-dangerous Pokemon in this battle because it's very fast and can double team. Because we outspeed though, Electrode is ostensibly useless, and we are on to Electabuzz. I feel like Electabuzz is another one of those neglected Pokemon. It was part of a trio with Jinx and Magmar. However, no one really talks about that trio these days, but we've knocked out Surge and we can go and catch our friend Snorlax. Snorlax the sleepy bear with the leftovers. We don't care about the bear, we care about what it's holding. For some reason I try and knock it out. I really don't know what I was thinking there, trying to murder the poor bear. Fortunately it didn't OHKO, and then I panic in the back trying to fumble for a Master Ball. I grab the Master Ball and I do get the leftovers. If I had knocked it out, there is a backup we can do by going into Celadon City, but that wastes a little bit of time. Anyway, we're on to Brock, gym number 13. 13's an unlucky number for a lot of people, but in this instance, Graveler's the unlucky one and goes down to Earthquake. Earthquake takes care of the Rhyhorn as well. That brings us on to Omastar. Omastar, a very good fossil Pokemon. I have to say I've never used the fossil Pokemon and I'm excited to do that in the future. Onix might as well not be there, and that brings us on to Kabutops. Kabutops goes down and we can move on to Cinnabar Island. We have a little chat with Blue and we pick up the rare candy, and then we can take on Blaine, the Fire-type leader with 3 Pokemon, a Magcargo, a Rapidash, and a Magmar. Magcargo comes out and we have first-hand experience of how weak it is to ground-type moves, so Earthquake does the job. Magmar the Bumhead Fireduck comes out and goes down straight away. That just leaves Rapidash. We outspeed and we knock it out with Earthquake. We can move on to the final type-themed gym leader. It's Janine with her poison types. I believe Janine is the only gym leader to have never appeared in the anime, and she's got the lowest level Pokemon, even though she's inaccessible if you take the normal routing until after you've taken on a few of the others. We take out her first 3 Pokemon, and now we are on to the Ariados. Ariados says goodbye very quickly. That brings us on to Venomoth, another neglected line by Game Freak. If you want to use a Venomoth, you've either got to use it in Johto or Kanto. And that brings us nicely onto the 16th and final gym with Blue. Blue's first Pokemon is Pidgeot. Did anyone else have that guidebook that said that Pidgeot was pronounced Pidgeot, or was that just a bootleg thing here in the United Kingdom? Anyway, the Alakazam goes down in less time than it took me to finish that thought, and we are on to Rhydon. We decide it's time for Rhydon to take a nap so it can't set up Sandstorm, and a couple of Earthquakes knocks it out. And his next Pokemon is Gyarados. Gyarados can also set up Weather with Rain Dance, however Rain Dance doesn't damage us at the end of each turn, so it's not particularly dangerous. And in fact can help us out with the Arcanine at the end if we can keep this rainstorm going. We get seeded by the Executor, which is very annoying, and we move on to Arcanine. Arcanine uses extreme speed, we retaliate with Earthquake, and that tiny bit of Leech Seed damage actually does us a favour. Takes Arcanine out of healing range and we can defeat it in another hit to get the final badge, the Earth badge, and we can chat with Professor Oak. He unlocks Mount Silver for us, and that means we can take on our final and ultimate challenge. Red is waiting for us. We've just got to get there, so we get on our bike and we cycle into Mount Silver. As always, we'll take on Red at our current level and see just how well or badly we do. And the excellent news is we outspeed the Pikachu, and that means we're never going to get charmed or have to worry about paralysis. Espeon outspeeds us though, and we miss our first Hypnosis. The second Hypnosis connects, and we can start using Return. Return isn't going to do great damage though because of that Reflect, so we're going to have to chip away and hope that the Espeon stays asleep, which it does do, and we're on to Snorlax. The Reflect fades, and out of character for Snorlax, he doesn't fall asleep. I use 3 rare candies and try again. We knock out Pikachu as we did last time, and once again the Espeon outspeeds us. It uses Reflect, but that doesn't really matter because we have a lot of PP with Return, and that just means Reflect can fade pretty much as soon as the Snorlax comes out. We outspeed the Snorlax and send it to sleep first turn, the Reflect fades, and we start leering at it. Looking at it funny while it's asleep seems to lower its defense, and all he can do is try and chip away with Snore. We're still in the green as we eventually use Return on Snorlax to take it down in a single hit. On to Venusaur. We've got 2 turns to send the Venusaur to sleep because it'll take in Sunlight, and we get it on the second turn, and we can now look at trying to knock it out. We get a critical hit to take it well into the red on the first turn, and then the second return is just a formality. The penultimate Pokemon of the run is Charizard. It uses Flamethrower, but we send it to sleep, and I know this is quite a cheap tactic. However, it's the quickest way to beat Red, and also it's the biggest way to differentiate Stantler from Girafarig. A couple of returns is all it took to deal with the Charizard, and we are on to the Blastoise. We miss Hypnosis and we get down to 1 HP. That goes back up to 13 with our leftovers. We send it to sleep, and we just have to make sure that we can hit 3 returns without it waking up, which we seem to be able to have done, and we have beaten Red with a time of 1 hour, 49 minutes and 2 seconds. And that puts Stantler in 4th place on the leaderboard, just outside of the top 3. Everything else shuffles down a spot, and that means we now have 2 Pokemon on our second page. Macago's now got a friend in Corsola on page 2, and with that, we're done. And at this point, I would like to say thank you to each and every one of you who has subscribed. By the time this video comes out, I'm likely to be at or around 1,000 subscribers, and that is orders of magnitude higher than I ever thought I would reach on this channel. So thank you. If you've enjoyed this video, please do leave it a like. If you've got something to say, leave it in the comments below. If you've really enjoyed yourself, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.